Let's try that. Just zoom down a little bit more. A little bit more. I like that. I like the way that looks. This is the most boring fucking background. I should be like every other YouTuber and get like an IKEA bookshelf or something. Because look at, I've been having, unfortunately, I've noticed myself having political style conversations. I'm going to open my notes here. And one of the things that, because I don't just do these all off the top of my head. One of the things I've noticed that sometimes people do when discussing political things, people will say, oh, you should just do this. You should just do my idea and it will work and things will get better. It's just common sense. And they use this word, common sense. Like this means something, right? Like this I don't know what they think, but they keep using this word and they think it means something. So I'm going to go over here's the title of this video. Here it is. You know how people always say, like, oh, common sense is not so common? And they say that, like, I have common sense, I'm smart, I'm better than people. But most people don't have common sense because they're all dummies and I'm so smart, right? You know how people, they use the phrase common sense is not so common? I'm going to say common sense is not so useful. That's there, boom, title. Now, obviously, what people believe, opinions people have, values that people have, somebody values one thing more than something else or vice versa in a different person, whatever it is. That's a lot of that is based on personality, which is somewhat genetic. It's based on personal experiences. It's based on your upbringing, your life circumstances. It's based on a lot of different factors. So common sense can be different from person to person depending on the context, especially if you're getting into a political context. Common sense can be different from person to person. So that means that here's where we get into my theory, okay? Here's my idea. I think that people just pick a side of an issue. They just come up with what they think makes they pick their side of it, and then they retroactively say, it's just common sense. And then they pretend that they came to their position on this issue based on common sense, when really they had this opinion first and then try to explain it by saying, oh, it's just common sense. Now, here's why when we're discussing important issues that really matter, here's why we shouldn't be using common sense, and that phrase, that whole idea is off the table. That's not allowed, okay? The main problem is that common sense is not scientific. You still have to nail down what that means and why you think this makes the most, why you think that your set of ideas should be considered common and sensible, right? So just saying the words common sense doesn't mean anything, doesn't prove anything. So that's not a scientific way to do things. And because it's not scientific, it can often be wrong. I have watched people say, oh, do this, it's common sense that whatever will happen, and then it doesn't. So, perfect example. If you've ever read the book Freakonomics, which is a great book, it's two economists who analyze normal things in the world through the lens of economics. It's really interesting. They do this whole study on daycare centers. So it's an after-school daycare center for kids, and sometimes the parents come late. So they close at 6 p.m. or whatever, and sometimes the parents show up late, right? So the daycare center says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start charging parents for every 5 minutes that they're late. We're going to charge them $20, whatever it is. It's just an example. And so they all sit there and said, well, if we start charging people for being late, they won't be late anymore. It's just common sense, right? Isn't that common sense, right? Yeah, so they did it and they studied this, and it turns out that's not what happens at all. More people end up being even later because they think, oh, I can be late now. because I'll just pay them a couple extra bucks, and now I can be like, I don't feel bad. Before, I felt bad that I was keeping them at their job late. But now I don't feel bad because they're getting my money. So I'll make an extra couple stops on my way to pick up my kid. So see this is where what someone says is common sense, it totally breaks down, totally falls apart. Now, let's bring it back to politics, right? Let's make the whole connection here. I have watched people discuss the legalization of marijuana. Okay, I've watched people have this discussion. And I've seen people say, if you legalize marijuana, more people will do it. It's just common sense. And then I've seen other people say, no. There are people who either smoke pot or they don't. And legalizing it won't change anything. It's just common sense. So now you have two people on separate sides of the issue, both saying, oh, my version of this is just common sense, right? So see, this is where the whole common sense thing, it's so unscientific. You have to nail this down, and so you can do the studies, right? And in pretty much, I think every study that's ever been done on this, legalizing a drug such as marijuana doesn't actually increase the number of people who do it, right? And it does seem to be true that there are people who there are just people who smoke pot or people who drink alcohol or whatever it is, and a certain portion of the population does these drugs, and they're going to do it regardless of whether or not it's legal. For the most part, that seems to be what the studies show, right? But you can't say that and then say, oh, it's just common sense. That's not an argument. Right? Now, in this one particular example, one side of the issue happens to be validated by evidence, right? But they're not right because it's common sense, right? They're right because the evidence is on there. So you see what I'm saying? So common sense, just saying the words common sense does not necessarily make you right or wrong. It's useless. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help anybody. It is a complete waste of everybody's time. So that's what I wanted to say on that, because I don't know. I just feel like I've seen a lot of people saying the phrase common sense and then acting like that means that they're right, and it doesn't, like at all. And it just really annoyed me. Like things should be studied and analyzed, and we should run experiments. You can't just do thought experiments in your head. Like, so I listen to politicians. They're like, well, if we do what I want, things will get better. How do you know that? You don't know that. Shut up. Like, unless you can prove it, you can't just say things. I don't know. I don't want to turn this into a rant. Because I know I can do it, but I'm not going. I'm going to restrain myself. For you. I'm doing this for you. All right. I'm done. Thanks for watching.